People consider the following to be civic responsibilities: reporting your income by filing your taxes, registering for selective service, also known as the draft, obtaining your education as a child, where we're thought to develop the skills needed to contribute and function effectively in society. None of these duties are particularly thrilling at face value, but there's one civic responsibility that is often depicted as a boring nuisance. You have little control over who you serve with and what tasks you actually get to do, and in some cases, what you get to eat, where you stay, and what you're allowed to see and hear. It'd be worse if after being selected and then spending a significant amount of time deciding the fate of one of your peers, you discover that all of this was actually an elaborate sham. Of course, I'm talking about jury duty. I'm Ronald Young Jr., and I'm on the couch. All right. This is Ronald, and I am on the couch after watching Jury Duty. Jury Duty on Amazon Prime. Created by Lee Eisenberg and Gene Stupnitsky. Directed by Jake Szymanski. Starring Ronald Gladden, James Marsden, Mekki Leeper, Edie Modica, Ishmel Sahid, David Brown, Cassandra Blair, Maria Russell, and Kirk Fox. And for a complete cast listing, you can check out the link in our show notes. All right, Jury Duty. It is on Amazon Prime. It is a Freevee original. Freevee is, I believe, a subsidiary of Amazon that is another streaming service that is fully ad-supported, meaning that all shows that basically HBO Max, Disney Plus, all of them port some shows onto Freevee that are completely ad-supported, but they are licensed to them to do so. So this is a Freevee original, meaning that it wasn't made in any other streamer, but it is still fully ad-supported, which means that in order to watch this, I had to watch a bunch of ads. You're welcome. But there seems to be some traction and some enthusiasm picking up for this show. And I took a look. I learned what the premise was, and I was like, okay, this seems right up my alley. So the premise of this show, it is a docu-reality series as it is described online, and it stars a man named Ronald Gladden, who is the only non-actor on this show. Every other person on this show is an actor. And what they're doing is they go through a complete trial, which ends up being a mock trial because it's not real. And Ronald Gladden is experiencing all of this as a real person while all of these actors are acting scenarios around him. Now, for those of you that have followed most of my work, you've heard me talk about Nathan For You. You've heard me talk about Nathan For You's other show, The Experiment. If you've watched the Jamie Kennedy Experiment, Punked, any of those shows, Candid Camera, What Would You Do? This is any of those shows where it is basically an entire world. Oh, that Jim Carrey movie, I'm completely blank on it. You're yelling it at me right now, where he is living in a world that is made up for him on a television show that everyone's watching. Again, you are all yelling it at me right now. I can't remember the name. I'm going to remember in the middle of this review, halfway through. Anyway, the point is, it's that. The Truman Show. Ha! I got it. Thank you for telling me, whoever yelled it at me at that moment. It's all of these people doing this song and dance for Ronald Gladden. So essentially, there's a jury selection. We all realize, the audience, we know that this is all a put on. Ronald Gladden is kind of experiencing these little things. He's like in the room with all these jurors and they're getting selected and the jury selection goes as expected. He's selected. It first starts off with, kind of the jurors trying to make excuses to not be on the jury and they're acting that out for Ronald. And I know it's confusing because I am also Ronald, but I am not this Ronald. I don't talk about myself in third person. I try not to anyway. So they're all doing this song and dance about not wanting to be on the jury. And then, the jury is assembled and it's 12 of them and 2 alternates. So 14 people total. But also the judge is an actor, the plaintiffs are actors, and the defendants are all actors. This is a very charming show. And it's charming because it's like watching those little episodes of What Would You Do, where they come in there and they do the social experiments to see if the person's going to do the right thing. And in this show, we see Ronald Gladden doing the right thing over and over and over again. And it's very heartwarming. It's very charming to watch this. It's very watch this very kind man. And that's the thing. It's not even that he's like particularly more kind than other people, but he's long-suffering and patient enough that he accepts that what people are offering to him is the truth. He has no reason not to believe what anyone's saying. Even though we as the audience are seeing all these ridiculous people kind of act out these ridiculous things to him, he is patient enough to be like, you know what? This guy seems to be really into technology in a very creepy way, but whatever. I'll be cool to him. I'll be nice to him. Or this other guy is having some relationship issues and they're kind of being disruptive, but I'll be cool to him. I'll be a mentor to him. Or my favorite person in this series, James Marsden, who is playing himself. So he walks in as James Marsden. He says he's James Marsden, but he plays a very self-important, egotistical version of himself. He's basically trying to use his experience to say that I'm too important to be here for jury duty, but he's constantly making every scenario about himself. And James Marsden is really, really, really eating in this. I mean, he is playing this to the people sitting in the back row of the theater. Like, I'm watching this and I'm thinking, and it was probably around episode 6 or 7 that I was like, oh, Steve Carell. He's Steve Carell in this. And when I say that, he's Steve Carell as Michael Scott from The Office, which, I mean, ironically, this is made from 2 ex-Office writers. It's not surprising that they have this kind of character who's kind of there to kind of just stir the pot and kind of be an impetus for other things that are going on. There are a few times in the show where I felt like I'll put it like this, where I could tell that James Marsden was the top billed actor in the show. There's a few times where you can obviously tell that. And it's just basically from the fact that they're putting him up front for a lot more scenes. And in some ways, because his role was so big, what I thought happened a few times was that the acting that was done by the rest of the jurors felt a lot more believable than James Marsden's. And there was a few times where I was thinking, man, if I were there, I'd be like, man, James Marsden is really hamming it up over here. Is this, I don't know. I think I might have become self-aware. But again, they picked the perfect person because Ronald Gladden was so eager to believe people and to accept what they gave to him, which just made it even more charming to watch. And James Marsden is having a good time. You could tell he's having a good time playing this person that's kind of a jerk. He's essentially a walking proverb of do not meet your heroes, And it's funny because Ronald Gladden is like buddy with James Marsden throughout the series. And you could tell that at some point he's like, do I even like this guy? Do I want to be friends with him? But he's long suffering and he continues being friends with him, even though James Marsden is like ruining everything for the entire jury. There's a lot of very charming characters here. I can't remember all of their names, but they're all of them have distinct personalities, and watching them interact with each other and with Ronald is very entertaining. And it's a feat of acting because there's 8 episodes of the show. They're about 26 minutes apiece. And by the time you get to like the 4th, 5th episode, you really get the sense that everyone is truly bonding. There's a bailiff here. And she really embodies what a bailiff like is and does. Like I 100% believed her performance. Her name is Rashida. I did not pull up my pronouncer, so I will not butcher her last name, but it starts with an O. And what I like about her performance is she plays every cranky bailiff I've ever seen in any courtroom, where it's just like, I don't really want to deal with this. I don't really like this job that much. And what you find with those folks is, it is true, the more they warm up to you, the more kinder and softer they become. If you've been in any courtroom situation where someone like takes compassion, but they really don't want to like let their guard down, because they do have a very serious job to do inside of a courtroom. And this bailiff takes her job seriously. But like, again, by the fourth or fifth episode, as the cast is beginning to congeal, you realize that this bailiff has been with these folks who are sequestered in this jury for this quite some long period of time. Again, I'm not describing a real thing to y'all. I'm describing a docu-reality series to y'all. And what they're acting in this moment is this sense of bonding, where they're all now becoming cool with the bailiff, and she's cracking jokes with them, and she's kind of like, being sweet to them in a little bit, but still like in a stern way. And even the way they're relating to one another, it really becomes this very real coming together of all of the cast. They just all begin to kind of vibe with one another in a way that just didn't feel like acting. It really felt like true bonding. And I understand that they were together the whole time, so I imagine it probably was in a lot of ways true bonding. But I was trapped on a bus for like 10 hours some years back. I remember I was on a bus on the way from Reston, Virginia to my home at the time, which was in Lorton, Virginia. And that is a trip, that commute normally took about an hour and a half to 2 hours. And there was a snowstorm that happened in the middle of rush hour traffic, and everyone else left way earlier than I did. So I got stuck on a bus for 8 to 10 hours. And there was a period of time where I made friends with a bunch of strangers on the bus. It was all people who didn't expect to be on the bus this long, did not expect to still be talking to each other. And we kind of like bonded in a way that was like, in a way that like after that, we stayed in contact, still texted each other, checked in, that type of thing. But in the moment, you have this eclectic group of people who are all in a situation that is not normal. And I'm realizing this. It's not really normal for adults to spend an extended amount of time with people that they are not in relationships with, that they don't have families with, that they don't work with. So anytime you get like this set of like a motley crew of people in a room, when the bonding starts to happen, it really does become one of those moments where it's like, oh, I thought you were this and you turned out to be this, and all those. And those moments kind of happen over and over again in the show. And even though it's acting, it is a feat of acting, because I believed it. But like episode 4 or 5, I believed it. And there's only one person who's not acting on this show. He's bonding with them. And, as they push forward into beyond, and I won't spoil like how the rest of the show goes or when the reveal happens or any of that, but even when they get to those moments, you really just get the sense that everyone was having a good time, and Ronald Gladden really was the impetus for all this, because he was a good and kind person and was earnest with everyone. So all of that being said, I binged through the whole thing in one evening after recommendations from 2 or 3 people. Really enjoyed it. Would definitely recommend it to folks. I give it a solid 4 stars out of 5. And I think, again, the only takeaways I really had from it, or the only things that I think hurt it a little bit, was I definitely thought there was a few times when James Marsden maybe was... I was enjoying his performance, but there was just times when it just felt like he could have dialed it back a little bit. And the parts where it was becoming the James Marsden show, I really like James Marsden, but like watching it become the show just felt like they kind of drifted a little bit. And I think, there was more... I just feel like I know I can't put my finger on it, but there was something missing in terms of where I thought the case was going and how I thought the reveal would go. But I mean, all of those weren't like that much of a setback for me, because I still think it's a 4-star show. Really enjoyed it. If you like Nathan For You, if you like The Experiment, it's going to be in that vein of show where it's just like, like a pranky show, but like, as they say on The Office, a guten Pranken, a good prank, as Dwight would say. So I enjoyed it. Check it out. It's on Amazon Prime. Jury Duty. And with that, Leaving the Theater is a production of OhitsBigRon Studios. Thomas Tyra of Bias Studios mixes the show. Thank you, Tom. Show art from Heather Wilder. Theme music by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. For more information about Jury Duty, check out our show notes. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at OhitsBigRon. That's at OhitsBigRon. You can find out more about this show and other OhitsBigRon Studio shows by following us on Instagram at OhitsBigRon Studios and on Twitter at OhitsBigRon Stew. That's STEW. Leaving the Theater will be back soon, but until then, I'll be here on the couch.